Welcome to Making a Millie Week 8 NFL DFS. We are looking at DraftKings Millie Maker. Specifically, this is your Millie Maker special show. Eric, how we doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm good, man. I'm excited about the slate. Last week, it was a week of injuries. Juju got hurt. Jaden Daniels got hurt. It was just bad all around. There were so many injuries. Ayuk, like you name it. If I played them, I'm sure they got injured. So, how you feeling about the slate?
I hope it's better than last week for me. I hope, like you mentioned, even like Tank Dell had no points. It was a kind of a rougher week. So I'm liking this week as well. There's some good games on there. A game I really like is the Green Bay Jacksonville. Obviously, that's the highest point total right now, but I'm liking that one. I think Trevor Lawrence can have a little bounce back, even though the Packers defense is good. So
yeah,
like that game. And I also like the Miami Arizona game. I know Tua's coming back. Hopefully, he returns to full form, and that's a good game.
Definitely, I like that game too. But yeah, man, let's. I guess right before we jump into the game tile, let's see our walk of shame from last week. Eric, do you have a walk of shame from last week?
Yeah, I do. I think there's a couple, but the biggest one I had would be Cortland Sutton. I thought he was going to have a great game and go off and score a bunch of points, and it ended up being not even a single target. So it's hard to score points when you're getting targets. That's probably the biggest one for me.
Definitely. 0 against New Orleans. That was very surprising. I did not expect to see that. But that Bronco game was so weird. Like, it was a Javonte Williams smash game. We had, Franklin get involved. Everyone but Sutton. I guess he got Lattimore treatment in that game. So I can totally see that. If I have a walk of shame, 2 weeks in a row, I did it again. The injury news comes down Sunday morning, and then there's this value guy that I'm jamming into my lineup, and he gets me a 0. So 2 weeks ago, it was Trey Tucker for the Raiders. Last week, it was Jordan Whittington because they're like, yeah, Kupp's not going to play again. So Jordan Whittington, he was projected as chalk. I ate it. He was like 4,800, and then he got me a 0. So add that to my Tank Dell 0, my Juju 0. Too many zeros on the slate. So that's my walk of shame. Terrible.
That'll do it.
But yeah, by the way, let us know your walk of shame in the comments. And if you like this kind of content, the Millie Maker special, let us know. Hit that like button. But I think with that, we're going to jump into the Vegas. All right, Eric. So the top game on the slate, Green Bay and Jacksonville. Why don't you break it down for us? What are your thoughts on this game?
I kind of alluded to that a little bit earlier. I apologize, but yeah, I like this game a lot. I think that Trevor Lawrence is starting to find a little bit of rhythm, although they lost again. But it's I think they're coming back, and I think they're going to get to a point where they say, hey, what do we have in this guy? So I think he's going to have to start performing, or something's going to happen. But I mean, there's a reason it's the highest point total on the slate. So I like this game. As always, I like Love and Reed connection.
Okay.
Brian Robinson, or not Robinson Jr., Brian Thomas Jr. has been really good as well. So
yeah, I
like this one.
Nice. So you think that Jacksonville is actually going to keep this game competitive, and maybe we'll get a shootout potential in this game?
I'm thinking so. Yeah. I mean, with the NFL, every time I think I know something, I always end up being wrong. Every time you think it's a sure thing, Green Bay's going to win easily. Ends up being an upset or a close game.
Yeah, definitely. I really like the Green Bay side of this game, but I think the best case scenario is that Jacksonville does keep this competitive. They show a little bit more life than we've seen, and you can throw on Green Bay a little bit. So if that happens, we could potentially get a shootout, and all of my Green Bay shares look even better. I like Brian Thomas for sure. Just kind of looking at some stats here, and Green Bay, they actually they're pretty neutral, just slightly below average secondary. So, yeah, maybe this is a spot for them to get right. Jacksonville passing offense. So, yeah, I hope that game, hits the over. A couple other games, that really stand out that we're going to look at the target is in Miami. And I think just because they're so mispriced, right? They basically, like, if you look at the salary for Tyreek Hill, for Jalen Waddle, and for Devin Achane, they basically have it Tyler Huntley pricing. So they haven't factored in that Tua is coming back and he's returning from a concussion. So yes, he may be rusty, but if we get Tua orchestrating the offense like we know that he can, like, dude, Tyreek Hill is 7,000. Like, Tyreek Hill is an $8,500 wide receiver, essentially, when he has a quarterback that can get him the ball. So this game I like a lot. Arizona's a team you could run on. They're a team you can throw on.
Waddle's, exactly,
yeah. Waddle's 5,400. And one of the biggest things, Eric, is normally it was very difficult to stack Tyreek Hill and Waddle because they're so expensive. Waddle is like 6,700 a lot of weeks, and then Tyreek's like over 8K, and then Tua is like, 6,800 or whatever, he would be. So, like, you could never do those double stacks. And now I get it. It's going to be chalky. We're going to look at ownership here in a little bit, but I'm just kind of like, maybe you should just really just eat that chalk and look for other spots in your lineup to get contrary and find that low-owned running back, that low-owned wide receiver. So I'm interested in this game a lot. And a couple other spots that stand out. Now, we got Philly going on the road to play Cincinnati. Now, what's great about this game and what like jumps out at me is we have a lot of firepower on both sides. You got AJ Brown, you got Devonta Smith, you got Jamar Chase, you got T. Higgins. So there's a lot of potential. You got Saquon Barkley. How could I forget about him? Like, what a year him and Derrick Henry are having. These two old men killing it. So that game has some potential. What are your thoughts on that game, Eric?
Yeah, I like that game a lot as well. I was kind of looking at building some lineups around both sides of it. As you mentioned, there's 4 stud wide receivers in that game, so a lot of ways you can go. Yeah.
The one thing that concerns me about this game, I went back and watched the Giants game the other day, and I was so pissed off because I had so much Malik Neighbors and I believed in him. I was like, this is Neighbors' game. I went back and looked at the game, and they had no time to throw. So what we saw in red zone, with Daniel Jones just getting sacked like almost every other play, like, they had no time to throw. And the one concern I have is Philly has a top 5 like rush defense, or not rush defense, pass rush. And Cincinnati, their offensive line is ranked 27th. So I'm a little worried that we might see a similar situation that could kill some of those Burrow and Higgins lineups. And just maybe, game stacks in this game in general. So I like this game. I think if this game plays out 10,000 times, I think there's so many ways this game could go. Shootout is definitely one of them, but it kind of depends on, what the pass rush is going to look like for Philly on Sunday. So it worries me a little bit.
Point there. Yeah, it's a very good point on that. Yeah, it's a very valid point.
So many times we look at like wide receiver matchups and cornerback, versus what cornerback or whatnot. And then we just forget that the game is really won in the trenches. Sometimes none of that really matters if like an offensive line can't block on that day. So it's a little cause for concern.
Yeah, it's a very valid point of you're making that. They do have a good defensive line, and I mean the Giants also have a good pass rush as well. You saw what they did, so it's a very valid point you bring up.
Yeah. So a couple other games, and then we'll kind of finish this up. No, we have Baltimore going against Jameis. What Jameis are we going to get, Eric? Are we going to get Tampa Jameis that is ultimate GPP quarterback, and we'll just throw it up? What was the meme? It was like, screw it, Mike Evans is down there somewhere, right? And you just 50-50 balls down the field to Mike Evans. Or we're gonna get the Tampa Jameis where Sean Payton was like, no, I'm not gonna let Jameis just throw 50-50 balls all game and throw 30 touchdowns and 33 interceptions, right? So what are we going to get? If we get good Jameis, this game could potentially be a shootout. Could potentially be a high scoring game because Baltimore's defense definitely hasn't been great this year. So I do think, though, Eric, we kind of need Cleveland to be good offensively to see the best for Lamar in this spot, because when you see the best Lamar, it's when the other team is scoring, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's exactly right. Like Lamar will perform when he has to, otherwise they'll keep the game kind of a running game special. But I don't know, as far as Jameis goes, I don't think he's going to try to do the 50-50 ball as much as we used to see. I mean, when Jerry Jeudy's your number one guy, there's not a lot. There's not a lot to see. They have a couple of big guys out there, but there's no Mike Evans, so I feel like they'll play a little more conservative than he usually does.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I don't know. I guess it depends on whichever way you're looking at it, right?
Yeah, depends how far behind they fall, I guess.
Yeah. And then just a couple other spots that really stand out. I will say, just kind of like an overview of the entire slate. Like, I think there's a lot of like spots where, I mean, have we ever seen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? We got really 8 games hovering around 45 or more. Actually, 9 games, close to like 44 or more. And we kind of started the year with like a lot of 30, 35, 37, point games. We're seeing a lot of these middling games, and oftentimes these are the games that can really go over 50 points. So that's kind of exciting to me. One that stands out, Houston. This is a great bounce back spot for them against Indy. They got the 25-point implied team total. A lot of people got burned by CJ Stroud last week. You could potentially go back to him here. But I really like Joe Mixon in this game going against Indy. What are your thoughts, Eric?
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, it's a good bounce back game. I think it's a bounce back game for Stroud. And I mean, I like Mixon as well. I think, although some people got burned last week going to Tank Dell, I think he's in a really good spot this week as well. And also,
yeah, that's a good point. I got burned from Tank Dell last week.
That may help with the offense.
Who's back?
Yeah. Jonathan Taylor coming back should help the offense and the Colts a little bit more as well.
Jonathan Taylor is my sneaky play of the slate, because how many times have we seen Jonathan Taylor do this? I feel like every time Jonathan Taylor comes off an injury, he goes into a matchup that isn't super good. Like, let's look at the numbers here. Houston, they allow 14 yards below average to opposing running backs. Basically, that's what this number means here. From StatSational via the Sharp app, one of the tools there. And this is like the prime spot for Jonathan Taylor to come back and actually have a good game. I've seen this happen so many times. It's like, oh, he's fresh off injury. He's got a bad matchup. Don't worry about Jonathan Taylor this week. You don't need to play him. And then he scores 25 points. And you're pissed off and you're like, why didn't I want to play Jonathan Taylor at 1% ownership? I've seen this movie.
Yeah, man. When you have a guy as talented as him, it's always hard. It's like Saquon. It's hard to count out on any matchup.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there's a couple other spots I really want to mention, and then we're gonna jump right in. We're gonna be quick with it with our stacks, our cores, our sleepers, and our lineup building. But Detroit, I would be amiss if I did not mention them with a 28-point team total against a pretty lifeless Tennessee team. Like, I really love Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery in this spot. Just, is huge favorites. That's typically when you want to target running backs. I love the Detroit defense. I also like Amon-Ra this week, Eric. And here's why. Ladarius Sneed has been ruled out for this game. And also Jamison Williams has been suspended. So more targets to go to Amon-Ra. And then there's going to be some value. Tim Patrick's a value. Khalif Raymond's a value. So I think this is a good spot. What are your thoughts on this game?
I like that. I didn't realize the corner was out. I knew Jamison Williams was suspended a game or 2 games.
Yeah.
I think they're in a good spot. It could be a David Montgomery game. I mean,
Yeah.
they may just if they get ahead, they may just kind of grind the ball, and David Montgomery's the grinder on that one. So if they get ahead like we all expect, it might just be a game for David Montgomery to go pretty crazy on.
Yeah, and we know he gets the goal line, a lot of the goal line carries.
Yeah.
One other game that stands out to me, I don't like the Seattle side. I think Buffalo here. I like me some Josh Allen this week. And, we'll kind of look at ownership just real quick, is like whenever you can get Josh Allen at low ownership, like that's really when you want to play him. And 2% ownership right now, which is crazy to me. They have a 24-point team total, Eric. The Seahawks are going to be without DK Metcalf. They already have a poor offensive line. Their defense, like you could definitely score on them. So, and Josh Allen has Amari Cooper now. So he's got more weapons. He's got Cooper, Shakir, Coleman. I like Josh Allen here. I feel like the field is kind of sleeping on it.
I think he's in a good spot. I mean, Daniel Jones was able to go up and down the field on that defense. So I don't think there's anyone that can't be beat. That's for sure.
Definitely. And then, I can't end this without talking about my Broncos being 11-point favorites, man. Have you seen this? I can't remember. I was thinking about it today. I'm like, so I don't think the Broncos have had a 26-point team total since like I started doing DFS content. Like it's been years. I don't think they've been 11-point favorites and I don't know how long. And really, because we got a lifeless Carolina team coming into Denver. Andy Dalton got hurt. Deontay Johnson's out. Adam Thielen's out. The Broncos have an elite defense, maybe best defense in the league, definitely top 5 at this point.
Mm-hmm. And
they're big favorites. Crazy.
That's one of those games where everyone expects it to just be a slaughter. But, I've been watching this game for too long to just give up. Anything can happen. I mean, I doubt that Carolina will win, but you never know.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to talk about the Raiders. That's just going to be a slaughter. That's
we'll
my team.
Yeah, we won't talk about that one. I will say though, Tampa, there's going to be value in this game because Godwin and Evans are both out. Yeah. So there's going to be some value at wide receiver, and we'll get into that. But that said, Eric, let's jump into our favorite stacks. All right, Eric, do you have your stacks ready? I'll let you start it.
Yeah, I do. The game you were literally just talking about. I actually went the other way around though, but I have Cousins and Darnell Mooney. We've seen that Tampa can give up a lot of points. I mean, they made Spencer Rattler look pretty good for the first half of that game. So, I like Cousins and Mooney stack to start out. I'm going back to the well, as I mentioned earlier, with Stroud and Dell. I think that well. I like that matchup against the Colts. And then the last one I had was Hurts and A.J. Brown. We've all seen games where A.J. Brown puts up 3 touchdowns and 160 yards or something like that. So I think if this game goes kind of a shootout, it could be, like you said, it could go 2 ways. It could be that that's a really good defensive line battle, or it could be a lot of points. But Hurts and A.J. Brown is my last stack on that one. I really like.
Definitely. Yeah, I think it's a good call. I like that one. I would say my top stack would be the one I just kind of brushed over was Josh Allen to Amari Cooper. Give me Josh Allen at 2% ownership. And of course, this is a courtesy of DFS Army. These ownership projections, these player projections, very important part of playing DFS is knowing, what is the field going to do? What can I do? So, Eric, you can get Josh Allen and Amari Cooper stack for 8% ownership, which is nuts to me. So that's how you can eat that Tyreek Hill chalk. You can eat, this Breece Hall chalk, for example. So just knowing this ownership is kind of how to build. And by the way, DFS Army right now is still doing 1 month off VIP, 50% off. So $44.99 right now for your first month. You get access to all these tools for all sports, Discord community, cheat sheets, everything. and use code VIP50 at your checkout. I'll put the link in the description of the video. But that's my top stack. Josh Allen to Amari Cooper, Eric. Another stack that really is going to stand out for me. I can't do the Knicks. I can't do the Knicks chalk as like one of my top stacks, even as a Broncos fan. I can't do it. I think it's a little silly. But I do like some Tua this week. So I think Tua, Waddle, and Hill. Tua's like looking for 6% ownership. Waddle and Hill are definitely getting ownership. Hill's going to be chalky. But like I was saying earlier, you just kind of have to eat that chalk and just look to get different elsewhere because these guys are all mispriced. So the fact that you can really eat that chalk and fit it good players into your lineup and then just look at other spots to find some low owned guys. I think that's a really good way to attack the slate. One thing I will definitely be looking to do. And then, it's funny because part of me is like, I want to do Jordan Love as my top stack, but I also think Jordan Love, you could just run him naked. Like, I don't think you need to stack him because it's so hard to guess who it's going to be. I'll say this though. One guy that I like this week that's projecting for low ownership, which, type his name in here, and he actually has a good matchup, is Christian Watson, 1% ownership, Eric. So if you can get Jordan Love with Christian Watson stack, that's your +1. You got your contrarian stack. It's a good matchup. He's low owned. He's cheap. Yeah, I like Christian Watson there with Jordan Love. So going against the worst secondary in the league against Jacksonville.
And like you said, it's kind of a shootout sometimes, but that's the right defense to put up a bunch of points on. That's for sure.
Absolutely. So, that's going to do it for the stacks. Let's go on to the course. All right, Eric, who are your top 3 cores?
All right, this one I had a bunch. I had to narrow down to 3, but I ended up with someone in the Green Bay game that you had mentioned, but it's Josh Jacobs. He's still priced pretty inexpensively. I think he's in a great matchup. He had a first receiving touchdown in a long time last week, but I think he's in a great position. I think I chose him last week as a core also, but he ended up working out. But I have him this week again. I really like the matchup. Jacksonville hasn't been able to stop anybody. Next one I have is Bijan Robinson. I think the first time I ever had him as a core, but again, Tampa Bay's defense hasn't shown. They have a pretty good run defense, but Bijan, as you know, he's a pretty good receiver as well. And at 7,200, that's I guess a fair price for him, but seen him higher. And the last one I have is Tyreek Hill. We've talked about him a lot, and I think, like you had mentioned, he's priced like they still have Huntley at quarterback or Skylar Thompson at quarterback. So I don't know if they're afraid that they're going to limit Tua or what the case may be, but Tyreek Hill at 7,000 it won't be like that next week. Unlikely.
No doubt about that. Yeah, if we get the Tua that we remember, Tyreek Hill will probably be 8K next week. So, and by the way, he said start me in fantasy. I don't know if you saw that interview. He's like, yeah,
I did.
We back. Start me in fantasy this week.
I'm sure everyone has a sigh of relief. Everyone. Achane, like Waddle, Tyreek Hill. I'm sure everybody's excited Tua's coming back.
Definitely. Yeah, man. So my cores, I'll piggyback off the Tyreek Hill one. That is my core. My philosophy in DFS is when you have a player that is vastly underpriced and they're mispriced, even if they're going to be super chalky, I'm just going to play that player and I'm going to look for other ways to get different in my lineup. Now, if you have a player that's in a good spot, but they're, priced accordingly, that's when I'm looking to fade that chalk, right? Like when they're really chalky, but they're like priced to kind of like their ceiling at their salary, like I'll fade that all day. But yeah, you get me a guy that really is like 1,000 to 1,500 under what he should be priced. I'll eat that chalk. And, it served me well in the past doing it for the most part. The other guy that I really like is Breece Hall in that matchup going against a New England team that is just not good. So they haven't been as good defensively. Their offense, they're kind of been carried by Drake's May's pretty good performances to start the year. The 2 games that he's played, he's looked pretty good, but quite poor team. So this is a good spot. It's one of the best matchups on paper for Breece Hall. He's going against a New England team giving up 21 yards above average to opposing running back. So I love him here. He's been getting 21 plus opportunities and has got like 140 all-purpose yards in his past couple of games. So I love Breece Hall. And then I talked about it a little earlier. Joe Mixon, he's averaging 24 DraftKings points per game. So Mixon in that spot going against an Indy team that is second worst on the slate. Give me some Joe Mixon. That's my third core.
Nice. I think, Joe Mixon, since he's been back, I mean, he doesn't look like he's lost a step at all. People were calling him last year they were saying, oh, it looks like he slowed down, and he doesn't look like he's lost anything at all. He looks really good this year.
Yeah. No doubt, man. Well, I guess we can kind of go to the next portion. We'll do the dice roll, and then we'll get into sleepers and lineup building. So let's jump into it. Okay, so we got 1, 2, and 3. If you've never seen this show before, the way we do this, we're going to roll the dice, and whatever number we land on. So Eric will roll first, I'll roll second. Whatever number we land on, you have to build a stack for that game. And so we're rolling the dice in a Millie Maker because it's a dice roll. So we got 1, 2, and 3 here. Eric, we'll start with you. Let's see what you get. You got the number 1 game. So that's the one you wanted, was it not?
Yeah, that one.
Maybe.
One that wasn't on there that I also liked was Atlanta and Tampa. But yeah, that was the first game I liked. I liked that one a lot, yeah. Yep. Now,
when we say stack, that basically means, and now I'm rolling here, but when we say stack, that basically means you have to have some sort of stack. So I got number 3 in that game. So it doesn't necessarily need to be the quarterback plus this pass catcher. It could be, a running back and an opposing wide receiver, right? So, or 2 wide receivers from the same game, or it can even be a team stack. Maybe you like Josh Jacobs and Jordan Love. So that's how we're going to build. So Eric got Green Bay and Jacksonville, and I got the game that I actually listed as one as my stack. So this should be pretty easy for me. I got Tua and maybe Tyreek Hill, maybe Waddle, maybe Ashawn, but going against Arizona on the other side. So I guess we can get into our sleepers. Do you want to go? Do you have your lineup ready, Eric?
Yeah, I've been kind of fiddling around a little bit. So yeah, I'm pretty much ready to go. I'm ready with my sleepers as well.
All right. So let's go ahead and I'll have you kind of go with your sleepers then. And I'm going to just run this. So go ahead with your sleepers and go from there.
Sounds good. The first sleeper I have is, I don't think we've talked about him at all today, but I think he's in a great position, is James Conner. He's pretty low owned. He's in a matchup where, it could be a good matchup for him. I like him a lot this week against Miami.
Yeah.
The second one I have is, I talked about him earlier as one of my stacks, but I like A.J. Brown this weekend. It just feels like it's been a while since he's had one of those big games, and sometimes a hamstring injury takes a little bit to come back from, and he's a couple weeks removed from that now, so I should be coming into full form. And the last one I have is Terry McLaurin. He's in a tough matchup, but if Jaden Reed plays, I think he's we're in a good spot there.
Yeah, A.J. Brown at 7% ownership.
Jaden, I didn't mean Jaden Reed. Sorry, wrong player there.
Okay,
it's Jaden Daniels.
Jaden Daniels. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, because I mentioned McLaurin and I said obviously Jaden Reed's not going to throw him the ball. So I like McLaurin, even though he's in a tough matchup this week. He seems to have good chemistry with the quarterback. So James Conner, A.J. Brown, and Terry McLaurin.
Okay. I like that. So we got A.J. Brown. Then you had Jaden Daniels if he plays.
Yeah, for McLaurin. I have McLaurin as
okay. Okay, for McLaurin. Okay. Then, for sure. And then, sorry, what was the third one?
AJ Brown and James Conner and Terry McLaurin.
Oh, James Conner. That's right. Yep. Okay. I like it.
Everyone's curious about the Kyler Murray curse. We'll see what happens this week. Or not the curse, but the Call of Duty release.
Yes. Exactly. It's pretty funny to me that they have the data to back it up. Fantasy, I think it was Yahoo Fantasy. They basically had his numbers like before and after a big game release like Call of Duty. And the man likes playing. He likes playing games. He's a gamer. So in the wrong sense, I guess. He's an online gamer. So
yeah, I'm sure he's heard enough about it. I mean, at this point, it looks like a trend. I'm sure he's heard enough. So it's not like he's going to try any harder than before, but I'm sure he's heard all the rumors and
right.
So he'll try to prove them all wrong.
Oh, I didn't cap this. You're right about that. All right, so I'll go with my sleepers, and then Eric will go with his lineup, and then I will go with mine. So I just locked in 100% Tua in 150 lineups, and I have it building right now. So we'll see what it gives me. But so my top sleepers, and of course we can go through here and just kind of show you guys. So I kind of went through Christian Watson. That he's in a good spot. This is actually pretty good matchup for him. They're both good against man coverage, and they're going against a Jacksonville team that plays a lot of it, pretty bad at it, but they still play a lot of it. We talked about Jonathan Taylor earlier, Eric. 3% ownership. It's a negative game script. It's not a super easy matchup. So it's like 100% a sleeper in that regard, right? Bad matchup, or at least, a pretty like below average matchup. And, he's low ownership, and it's projected as a negative game script, but we got a guy that is projecting for 3% ownership that we know has the ability to take one to the house and have a 25, 30-point performance. We've seen it from him in the past. So I like him as well. My last guy, when we look through ownership here, we see Bo Nix chalk, 15%. We see Javonte Williams chalk. How do you get direct leverage? You play Devon Vele at like 3% ownership. He's a 3K player at like 3% ownership. His story is he had 8 targets week 1, and then he got hurt and was inactive, and then came back the following week, had like 6 targets, had a down week last week. But with Denver having such a high game, in a game environment where they're projected as 11-point favorites and they have a high implied team total, give me Devon Bailey at 3K at 3% ownership. So had to throw a Bronco in there in this spot, given the circumstances.
I'm sure it makes you put a smile on your face seeing all the Broncos being chalk.
Yeah, man. I mean, hey, I don't get to talk about my Broncos as chalk very often, so I'll eat it up in this situation.
I don't blame you.
But so yeah, that's going to do it for our sleepers. Eric, let's do the lineup build. Let's see your lineup. What do you got?
So yeah, I got the Green Bay Jacksonville game. I thought about it, and I went back to stack. I went Jordan Love and then Reed. I don't know what it is. I always go back to that one. I think they have a good connection. As I mentioned, it could be anyone, but I like Reed this week as well. And I also back with Michael Wilson. Very low owned. Sometimes people forget about him, but he's a big possession guy near the end zone. He's had good games in the past, but they're usually far and few between. But he's only 4,900, so hoping he does something on that game as well. I also have Brian Thomas Jr. in that game as well.
Okay.
6,400. If they can keep it competitive, he's the guy that might. He's made Christian Kirk relevant this year, which is really surprising. I didn't expect that to happen, but he seems like he's the number one on the team.
Definitely, yeah. No, he's looked great. He's a guy that I was targeting in best ball and Big fan of his.
So, and then I had one of the sleepers I mentioned. I have James Conner as well,
Okay.
and Devon Achane as well. I had to get him in there somewhere with Tua coming back. I mean, if we remember what he did last year, he had some pretty crazy games. With Tua being back, I might stretch the field, open it up a bit, and allow for him to have a good game. We've all been waiting for it, and it hasn't happened this year. So, but Tua only played in like 1.5 games. So,
yeah.
The next one I have is Darnell Mooney. I talked about him as one of the stacks I liked with Cousins, but I had Mooney in the lineup. For my tight end, I have Hunter Henry. But the rookie, Drake May, seems to go to him a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Seems one of his favorite targets. Call. And for the defense, I have the Falcons. I don't know. I know they don't have a great defense, but Baker just lost his 2 best weapons. So you just never know how they're going to respond to that. So there's a possibility that the Falcons defense steps up and Baker struggles.
I could see that happening without his main 2 guys. Very much could see that happening.
But yeah, to recap, I have Love and Reed and Brian Thomas Jr. and Michael Wilson. So I guess 4 players in that game. I
like it.
James Conner and Achane, Darnell Mooney, Hunter Henry, and the Falcons D.
James Conner, Achane, Darnell Mooney, Hunter Henry, and defense. Nice.
Defense, yeah.
I like it. Well, I had the Domination Station spit out 150 lineups for me with, you can see here, Tua locked in, since I just did that right away once we were on stream and, saw that I had Miami. So what I'm going with, the top lineup, I like it. So I got J.K. Dobbins and Josh Jacobs. Now, J.K. Dobbins going against a pretty poor New Orleans team. They're pretty big favorites. So that's chalk I'm willing to eat. He's looked really good this year. And what I like here, Eric, the next piece, I got Josh Jacobs. So getting less ownership. They have a high team total. It's a good spot for Love. This just seems like a scenario where, get a little bit off of some Love chalk that we might see. Play Josh Jacobs here against a terrible Jacksonville team. There's a good chance where they don't have to do much and they just lean on the run in this game. So I like that. And what else I like about that is Christian Watson was one of my sleepers that I gave, and I got him in this lineup. So I got a little team stack here of Josh Jacobs and Christian Watson. So I like that potential onslaught with these 2. Now, I also got Tyreek Hill, obviously stacked with Tua. So I love that because, like I said, he's mispriced. We need to play Tyreek Hill this week. So Ladd McConkey, I got another stack. This lineup has a lot of correlation. So with Dobbins and McConkey, this is a really good spot for Ladd McConkey. He's the number 1 in the offense. He's cheap. He's getting like almost a 25% target share. And I think they're really just gonna roll New Orleans here. The Spencer Rattler led New Orleans team. K. Dotton, I really think he's kind of the number 1 in the offense right now with Godwin and Evans out. I think he's the one guy. Like, we saw him get like 10 targets last week. Baker Mayfield almost got him killed multiple times, but he was getting a lot of targets. So I expect that to continue, kind of a safety blanket. And then Javonte Williams, got my boy, Broncos, big favorites. So 3 running back week, some chalk running backs. Chalk running back is fine. Tua's pretty low owned. He's under 7%. We got Jacobs under 9%. Christian Watson, my 1% guy. Then Jets D going against New England. So I think this is the week that the Jets bring it all together, and I think they can create some problems for Drake May. So I like this lineup here. First one.
Yeah, it's a good lineup, and one thing to mention, the Domination Station is pretty cool because it'll, when you hit it and it generates all those lineups for you, it'll create lineups you don't even think about. Ones that like, oh, I didn't even think about that, but I really like it. I mean, it's a pretty awesome tool that, it does what would take you, 10 hours of work to build that many lineups manually. So you do it in a few seconds. That's a pretty awesome tool. Plus you can set the ownership percentages and everything. So that's a great way to go about it. Give you different ideas on ways to go.
Definitely. One of the things too is you can also set max exposures, which I like to do, like a defense and tight end where it's 20%, even a wide receiver. Like I will do that with the exception of like Hill and Waddle because I was locking them into my lineups. But a lot of times, like we just get in our own way because we'll keep clicking the same players over and over. So when you're playing like a bunch of lineups, this will help you. Like, I guess get your portfolio. What is the word I'm looking for? This will help you
diversify.
There we go, Eric. There we go. Yeah. Diversify your portfolio. It's very important. I look at DFS pros and, sometimes they'll have like no more than 20% one wide receiver. So there's diversification is very important to your lineup, I think. So yeah, to your point, it's a tremendous tool that can help with that. And you can get access to the tool with code VIP50 for 50% off your first month. But yeah, that's pretty good. I like it. The second lineup, I would like that too with Breece Hall, J.K. Dobbins. So, I think this would be a good week to MME. And we got quite a few different options here in 150, even with the same quarterback in 150. So there's a lot you can do with this tool. But Eric, any final thoughts on the slate?
No, I mean, like as you had mentioned, there were 9 games at 45 points or more, somewhere around there. So I'm really looking forward to this week. They talked about a lot of, lower scoring because of the too high safety, but seems we're maybe not going that direction. So I'm looking forward to this weekend.
Definitely. Yeah, me too. So it should be a good one. And of course, we will see you back next week for another week of making a milli. So best of luck. We'll see you next time.